Who are the players you should be targeting in DFS this week, whether you're playing FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, or PrizePicks? And what are the injury updates you need to know going into Saturday and Sunday's games? It's time to break it down right here, right now, as we close another week of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. Here we are. We are at the final show of the regular season for fantasy football, Week 18. We're going to get into DFS. Look at the players to target there, whether you're playing FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, or PrizePicks. We'll have our PrizePicks picks of the week to close the show. In between, we'll have the injury updates. You know, we have Saturday games, Chiefs, Raiders, Jaguars, Titans, and then we'll be closing with a full slate of games on Sunday, all the way through Sunday Night Football, Packers and Lions. So we'll update you with the injuries you need to keep tabs of here as we'll wait for the final designations on Friday afternoon/evening. We'll have that information, and we have an indication of who's in or out right now, so we'll give you that as we've seen the practice reports and see how that's going. So action-packed way to close the week, as we always do here on a Lineup Friday and Locked On Fantasy Football. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's dive right in. We're going to first look at our DFS picks for FanDuel and DraftKings. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. All right, let's start at quarterback. And Jalen Hurts looks like he's going to return to limited practices, so we'll give you the hint on that one. And they do need to win this game, the Eagles, to wrap up the NFC East and get the number one seed in the NFC playoffs, get that bye as well, and get into the divisional playoffs. So it's a little expensive, we know. Jalen Hurts, $9,000, but I think he's going to come through and do what he needs to do. This could be a big Jalen Hurts game where he's going to deliver what he usually does here, passing and running. The Giants are going to rest players here. They're already pretty weak against the run. So the Giants locked in as that number 6 seed in the NFC. So that's going to help the Eagles here to facilitate what they need to do offensively. They're not going to take things for granted. They're going to put up the numbers that they need to and just take care of business here. So I think Hurts is going to have a big rebound game as he comes back in the lineup after Gardner Minshew started 2 games for the Eagles. Dak Prescott pivoting from one NFC East quarterback to another, 6,600 DraftKings. He's a tournament pick this week. Prescott and the Cowboys are going to play at least like they can win the NFC East. They play in the same window as the Eagles do. They're playing the Commanders on the road. The Commanders have a very weak pass defense. Their run defense is pretty good, as we know. So I think Dak is going to have to put the ball up in the air a little bit more. He's also overdue for a game where he can rush for a touchdown and throw for multiple scores. So I think that also happens here. 6,600, great price there on DraftKings to really get the 3x to 4x on your return there with the Dak Prescott. So do like that price for him. That Cowboys pass game needs to stay sharp here as they go into possibly the wild card round first. I mean, they could still win the division and jump up in seeding all the way to number 1, but I think realistically they're going to face the Buccaneers as the number 5 seed in the opening round of the playoffs in the wild card game. So they got to be sharp. I think the Cowboys will do that in the passing game here with Dak Prescott. 6,600, good price there for tournament purposes. All right, let's turn to running back. These are the guys I like in FanDuel this week. And they're actually in the same game. It's Kenneth Walker at 7,700. They're going to feed the ball to him a lot. I think he's overdue for a touchdown as well as the high volume and rushing production he has for the Seahawks. The Rams could be without Greg Gaines as well, their nose tackle on top of Aaron Donald. missing another game, so they're a little bit weak in the run defense right now. Kenneth Walker's getting the ball quite a bit. Doesn't really matter if he misses practice and ankle injury. They're just resting him up, and he's been very productive on game day the past 2 weeks against the Chiefs and the Jets. So Kenneth Walker, again, overdue for that touchdown when you get that type of volume. I do like him in cash games at 7,700. On the other side, the Seahawks run defense is pretty weak here, so Cam Akers should continue to get the rock here. He did have multiple scores in the first meeting. Price is still pretty good here for Akers. A little bit of a quiet game last week against the Chargers, but Chargers are getting better as a defense. The Seahawks are really good against the pass, but they still struggle against the run. So 7,300 there for Cam Akers as your other cash games running back. Now, there's a little bit of volatility with Najee Harris, but I do like him at 6,100 on DraftKings, facing the Browns' run defense at home. He's been very productive of late. I think he gets 100 and a score as his floor in this game as Pittsburgh tries to work in the playoffs, depending on what happens to the Patriots and Dolphins playing in the same window. So I do like Najee Harris. Good, strong finish to the season for Harris. Had been disappointing a lot early. We know that he was unplayable. The second half of the season, Najee's been a different running back than one that we thought should be a surefire mid to late first-round pick in fantasy, and that's what you're seeing here. Harris and his talent is manifested as Kenny Pickett and the offense have become more comfortable here. Raheem Mostert at 6,000. That's a very good price. Jeff Wilson Jr. hasn't looked all that great of late running. Mostert has been the man catching passes. He was the leading receiver last week. He was also using his speed, power. He's been healthy. That's the type of back that Jeff struggled with. If you look last week, Travis Etienne really ran all over the Jets, helped the Jaguars win that game on a Thursday night. So Mostert, similar profile running back here at 6,000 and a potential for 100 and a score for him to really live up to that expectation of 6,000 and can get that 18 to 20 points you're looking for in tournaments from Mostert. All right, so those are the two tournament picks there at running back. Let's go to the cash game picks. FanDuel at wide receiver. Start with DJ Moore. He's getting involved consistently with Sam Darnold. The Saints secondary does have Marshawn Lattimore back, but he's just back 2 games. Paulson Adebo could miss time again. He's probably going to miss the game here. So there's number 2 corners out. DJ Moore's been schemed open quite a bit. He's getting nice volume. So potential 100 and a score again for DJ Moore at 7,300. I like the DK on FD this week. That's DK Metcalf, 7,200. I know they've got Jalen Ramsey, but they move him around. He's in that joker position. I think Metcalf can have a nice game here. Tyler Lockett should play the shin injury, but might have limited snaps here as we go along, and that's a tough injury. DK having a knee injury of his own, but he's been rested. He's fully good to go here for this one. So 7,200 is a nice price for DK Metcalf for a high floor. And Brandon Ayuk, he's been pretty consistent here. We'll see about Deebo Samuel this week returning. Maybe they'll be careful with his snap count here if the 49ers have to play in the wildcard round. So 7,100 for Brandon Ayuk. You can look at it cash games as well, feeling it with Brock Purdy. All right, at DraftKings, we look at the tournaments. I like DJ Moore here as well because of that price, 6,100. So with him against the Saints, it's really good. You can also look at Chris Olave in either situation there on cash games or tournaments there as a little bit of a pivot from Moore as he's fully recovered from the hamstring injury and good to go against a secondary that is minus J.C. Horn. We talked about Chris Olave dominating a wide receiver on yesterday's show, and he's also good at being a DFS value play this week. If you're going to pay up beyond Moore, you look at CeeDee Lamb, attaching with Dak Prescott in those games. A good stack there, Prescott and Lamb. I really like them hooking up quite a bit against the Commanders secondary. Benjamin St. Juste is still hurting. Cameron Curl, they're finding safeties hurting. They can be exploited in the slot a lot, and Lamb lines up there. So I do like the Prescott-Lamb connection quite a bit. 66 for Prescott, but you can pivot and get Lamb as well for 8,200 at Dak savings. And Marquise Hollywood Brown, looks like David Blau is going to start again at quarterback for the Cardinals. That's good news for Hollywood because I think they'll push the ball downfield a little bit more. You also have injuries to Robbie Anderson. We'll talk about why we like Marquise there, and to DeAndre Hopkins. So Anderson's a deep threat. Hopkins is the number 1, but Brown can also act like that. Here with Trey McBride, these guys may need to be the top targets again for David Blau. So 5,300, Marquise Brown potentially can make a big play. The 49ers give up that kind of production late in games. We've seen them struggle quite a bit. Devontae Adams going off last week. The 3 Commanders receiver. So that's what you can do against the 49ers. So Marquise Hollywood-Brown at 5,300 is our final DraftKings tournament pick at wide receiver. I have the same tight end this week. It is Dallas Goedert. I like him at 6,200 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DraftKings. A.J. Brown is going to be pretty good. We know looking at CeeDee Lamb there is also a wide receiver we covet, and looking at how Dalton Schultz produced, I think you can see something similar this week with Dallas Goedert playing off Brown and Devonta Smith. So he's nicely priced, 6,200, 4,900. You could pay up for George Kittle. Travis Kelce's not available in the main slate because he plays on Saturday. So look at Dallas Goedert. He's the best tight end on the board that we're looking at. I mean, you could look at Mark Andrews again against the Bengals as well. But I like the price of Dallas Goedert. Save a little bit of money. He's going to be involved. I think he's due for a nice game here with Jalen Hurts returning. And this is the first game in a while that they've played together. So I like that for sure. We're looking at defense on both sides. It's the Steelers. I do like them at home against the Browns. You have Deshaun Watson not producing a lot of points, but this defense, T.J. Watt. We'll see about Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's had an ankle injury that's kept him out of practice for 2 days. They're hopeful he can play in this one, but 3,900 and 3,200 here for the price for the Steelers. That's where I'm going to go and end up looking for defense in DFS this week. We told you at the top in our final segment, we will look at our picks of the week. And this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football, one of our main sponsors here for DFS, is PrizePicks. And really, PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You can make entries very quickly. It's player projections that you're going after, not competing against other players. Just more or less than the PrizePicks projection. That's how you make it work. How does it work? It's pretty easy. I've gotten to the game as well. It's picking 2 to 6 players. They go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no other people there. No competing there. It's just you versus projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That doesn't mean NFL, but now NBA and NHL, college sports. So with the championship game coming up between TCU and Georgia, then we have college basketball in full swing here. So a lot of good stuff for PrizePicks. And look at basketball as well. Don't miss out on that. Some nice moves you can make there. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You can expect safe and fast withdrawals with PrizePicks, and currently operational in more than 30 states in Canada. It's easy to get it on downloading PrizePicks. Just go to the App Store and get PrizePicks, the app, or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. That's only at PrizePicks.com. All right, we will continue the show here in a moment. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Subscribe to the Locked On NFL podcast to get daily conversations of the biggest NFL stories, including what's happened with the Bills-Bengals game. Not resuming here in Week 18. They're just going to figure out things for the AFC playoff seeding, potential neutral site championship game. So discussing that and other things, plus in-depth analysis on the biggest games of NFL key predictions. That's every Friday. That's today. And Monday, you will get the recap, local insiders covering the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let us look at our injury update, shall we, for this week. Colt McCoy, we talked about David Blau, concussion, 2 missed practices. He's going to miss another game, it looks like. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are going to err on side of caution as they're locked in the playoffs here, so they need to win next week, not this week. So Lamar Jackson probably missing another game. Josh Allen, a little bit concerned having an ankle injury with that right elbow. He was downgraded to limited, but they're just managing his reps. He should go against the Patriots. Justin Fields is the big one. He's not going to play. He's already been ruled out for the game. Nathan Peterman with Trevor Siemian on IR is going to be the quarterback here for Chicago. Not very appealing in that matchup against the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers is going to go on Sunday night with a right thumb and knee injury. Nick Foles is not going to play rib injury, so you'll see probably Sam Ehlinger against the Texans this week. Trevor Lawrence should go. He's listed questionable as they finish their practice for the week, but he'll go for the Jaguars in that key game against the Titans. Jared Stidham is okay for Saturday against the Chiefs. Justin Herbert, left shoulder injury, but he's good to go against the Broncos. Tua Tagovailoa has also been ruled out here. He's not in the quarterback plans for the Dolphins. So Teddy Bridgewater is going to try to go with the knee and right finger injury. That's the concern. The fracture in the finger with the pinky. He should be the starter over Skylar Thompson. Mike White, some concern about his availability, and they might have to pivot to Joe Flacco. Mike White had a little setback in practice there on Thursday with a ribs injury. So we'll see about Mike White. If he can go, it changes the complexion of that Dolphins game a little bit if the quarterback matchup is a little bit more even in that one. Jalen Hurts, we talked about the right shoulder. He should return to start against the Giants with the number one seed on the line. Brock Purdy's good to go with the oblique and rib. He'll fill in for Jimmy Garoppolo again. Tom Brady was just rested. He's good to go. He's not being rested. He wants to play against the Falcons in that game. Let's go to running back. James Conner is the big one. Knee and shin injuries. He's probably going to miss the game against the 49ers. So fire up some combination of Keontae Ingram and Corey Clement at your own risk in a tough matchup this week. D'Ernest Johnson should play, but he's got a shoulder injury, notable behind Nick Chubb, maybe a little bit extra volume of the power running game. Tony Pollard is going to return. He didn't play last week, but he had the extra time to return from the thigh injury, so he'll be out there against Commanders. Tough matchup, but can get it done in the passing game here. Justin Jackson will be back from his hip injury to complement DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams against the Packers on Sunday night. Speaking of the Packers, Aaron Jones is good to go with the knee and ankle injury. The Raiders on Saturday night, interesting designation for Josh Jacobs. He's had hip injury and oblique injury. He's had a personal issue. He's missed practice, but he should play against the Chiefs. Zamir White is available behind him with the ankle injury after missing a couple of weeks here. Raheem Mostert, good to go here, just being rested. Miles Sanders, feeling good with the knee injury. He will play there. So will the combination of Kenneth Walker and DJ Dallas, both coming off good games there. Christian McCaffrey, we'll see about him. 2 missed practices. They're being careful, but he should play. Load managing him a little bit in practice, ankle and knee. If not, you'll see a lot of Jordan Mason against the Cardinals. Derrick Henry is going to return and smash it potentially against the Jaguars, a team he likes to run against. Hip injury after sitting out last week, a meaningless game. He's back. Brian Robinson, we'll see about him. 2 missed practices and knee injury. Tony Gibson's already been ruled out. He's been placed on IR with foot and knee issues that kept him out last week. So we could see Jonathan Williams carrying the load against the Cowboys. It's not a good matchup either way, but if Williams gets some volume, he might have some appeal there. At wide receiver, we talked about Marquise Brown. He has a wrist injury. He's good to go, but DeAndre Hopkins with the knee and Robbie Anderson with the back injury probably going to miss the game. Deshaun Jackson should play. He's had an illness that kept him out for a couple days, but should be out there against the Bengals. Dante Pettis had a scary incident against the Lions, but he's good to go as a healthy Bears receiver for Peterman in the game against the Vikings at home. Amari Cooper, good to go with that hip injury against the Steelers, trying to stay hot. Jerry Jeudy will continue playing with the ankle injury. Kendall Hinton, however, is going to miss a game with a chest and foot. Christian Watson, you look at for the Packers, hip injury. Better limited work here this week, so he should be at better full speed this week for that Lions game. Ashton Dulin had a scary moment as well, but he's going to return from the concussion. Mecole Hardman could return for the Chiefs back from IR. He's a pelvis injury. We'll see if they go with him. He is available if they need him, so he was questionable with the limited practices for the past few days. Sky Moore has been ruled out, however, with a hand injury. Devontae Adams is battling illness, but he'll play against the Chiefs with no problems. Ben Skowronek is going to miss another game with a calf injury here for the Rams. Jalen Waddle, shoulder injury, he'll play through it as he usually does against the Jets in that tough matchup. Cedric Wilson Jr. probably not going to be available, so bump up Trent Sherfield behind Waddle and Tyreek Hill this week. Looking at Jacoby Myers battling through the shoulder injury, he should go against the Bills. Devontae Parker, we'll see if he's completely cleared here, but limited for 2 days here for Parker, so he could be out there to help Mac Jones in that tough matchup. Deontay Johnson is fine with the hip injury, like him this week against the Browns secondary, potentially without Denzel Ward, who's got a shoulder injury. Deebo Samuel, ankle and knee injury. He went full on the first day. He was limited, so we'll see what his role might be here as they're judicious with his workload ahead of the playoffs. Tyler Lockett, he's going to play with the shin injury. That's the expectation. They're determined to play, was the word used by Pete Carroll for that. So DK Metcalf, we know, is going to play with knee injury. I could see Julio Jones sitting again, knee and illness. Bucks don't need to play anyone that game. They're locked in the number 4 seed as they play the Falcons. Traylon Burks, a little bit concerning. He popped up limited on the second day on Wednesday. We'll see if he goes on Saturday. Just downgraded, no practice on Thursday. At tight end, Dawson Knox just being rested with a hip injury. He should be good to go for the Bills. A couple tight ends could be missing the game for the Broncos. It's Eric Saubert and Eric Tomlinson. We already know Greg Dolch is in IR with his hamstring, so could help Albert O produce against the Chargers in that game. Kyle Ganson probably going to miss another game for the Colts. Hard to trust that tight end by committee. Jonas Smith could return from a concussion for the Patriots. Juwan Johnson getting a limited work here with a quad injury. We'll see if he can play against the Panthers. Taysom Hill, running back slash tight end, is good to go with his back injury. No fan should continue to play with the knee injury. And we have a kicker injury. Harrison Butker is questionable for the game against the Raiders on Saturday afternoon with a back injury. We'll see if he can go. Other notable injuries, Terran Armstead still banged up for the Dolphins up front. We'll see if he can go return this week. Donovan Smith probably going to sit out a game for the Bucks, as it doesn't mean anything. He missed 2 practices with a foot injury, so 2 potential key left tackles out defensively. The Cardinals are really banged up front with Zach Allen and Leke Fotu, so that's good for the 49ers running game. We mentioned Donald and Gaines for the Rams, possibly missing more time here, so that really helps. Vita Vea could be rested, so that can help. Tyler Algier, the Falcons running game. Jonathan Allen also may sit for the Commanders. That's going to help the running game of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard for Dallas. Those are really the most notable ones. We mentioned Denzel Ward in the secondary. Looks like Xavier Howard is going to return, so that can make it a little tougher on Zach Wilson, but those are what we're looking at here with the key injuries for Week 18 there. So that's a good breakdown. We will close the show with some PrizePicks picks of the week. So we do have some numbers there that we want to go over, some guys that we really like. We have 11 in all this week, so we'll get to those in our final segment. Here, I do have to tell you, BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. It is a real great time of year. We got the NFL playoffs. We have the last game of the college football playoff. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball, the NBA. Hockey with the NHL and college sports, they've got all covered at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, and we know you do if you listen to Locked On Network, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information for sure. Head to the website today and use a mobile device to learn more, to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Check them out there. Get in on BetOnline there. Take advantage of a great time of year to be involved in sports gambling, as seasonal fantasy has wrapped up here, and we turn the page to the playoffs and all that good stuff. So check it out, BetOnline here. All right, it is time to close the show on the Locked On Fantasy Football, and we will look at our PrizePicks picks of the week. Let's fire them up here, shall we? We got 2 quarterbacks we like for the passing yardage, and spoiler alert, we always like them more with the projections available. It's a little bit easier for us to navigate, so that's a comfortable zone that we like to play in with PrizePicks here. Jared Stidham, 240.5 passing yards. I like that number. I'm not going to Patrick Mahomes, listed more than 300 yards in the game against the Raiders, but Stidham is going to have to put the ball up quite a bit, much like the 49ers game. 240.5 is a nice number. So I like Jared Stidham at least to put up the numbers there with garbage passing in that game against the Chiefs, as they're nearly 10-point underdogs, the Raiders at home. Dak Prescott, 255.5. We tied in. We have to correlate these things with the DFS in different forms. So we like him on DraftKings. We like him on PrizePicks. 255.5 is a modest number. Again, tougher to run the Commanders, even if Jonathan Allen misses that game. They're going to light them up. So I do like Prescott, 255.5. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks we're recommending here with the yardage. We want to stay away from the other ones. A little tight. We're not sure what you're going to get from some of these other quarterbacks. But I know these guys will be involved and be playing a lot. I also like those numbers as well. All right, let's go to our PrizePicks picks at running back. I do like Derrick Henry, 91.5. He owns the Jaguars. We know that. He's well rested with the hip injury. Didn't play last week. So Derrick Henry, 91.5. When we've gone for the big numbers with Henry, he's come through. Dalvin Cook, this one is a little bit tricky with 78.5, but they work in Alexander Madison. But the run defense of the Bears is so atrocious right now that I think he can get to 80 yards. And that's all we need for Dalvin Cook to pay off there. Cam Akers, we liked him. We know that he's the source of production against the Seahawks. They're going to feed him the ball, 72.5 yards. We're going more with that for Cam Akers. And going a little bit lower with it, Miles Sanders. He's had 2 disappointing games, but 63.5 against the Giants' run defense that could be without Leonard Williams and Azeez Ojulari, resting players there. So I do like that 63.5 Sanders with Jalen Hurts back for that number. So not asking a lot from Miles Sanders to get that playing off Jalen Hurts. 63.5 is manageable, and we like that number. We're going back to Travis Kelce at 76.5 for receiving yards, for more than that against the Raiders. The Raiders really struggled to cover the tight end. They were decent last week against George Kittle. They didn't need him too much. Kelsey is the lifeblood of the Chiefs passing game. 76.5. I think he hits a 90 for sure or more in this game. Devontae Adams, same game, 75.5. The Chiefs secondary is not very good. Jefferson showed great chemistry with Adams. If he gets half of last week's total, you're in business there with Adams. CeeDee Lamb at 75.5, like that, tying in with Dak Prescott again. That's a good chunk. You're asking for about 25 to 30% of Dak's numbers there coming there with 75.5. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. Good combination to like this week in DFS all round, as we mentioned all show long. So 75.5, love that number for CeeDee Lamb. Also like the lower number for Christian Kirk, just like Miles Sanders. He's had two shaky games in a row, but the Titans cannot cover the slot. He had a nice game last time. So 59.5, we're going there. I think he gets at least 65 receiving yards. On a Justin Jefferson, our second big 90 number we're going for, 91.5 for Henry, 90.5 for Jefferson. I think he'll be motivated to have a big game. Also, the Bears secondary really banged up. You know, Kyler Gordon is battling through a growing injury. Jalen Jones is a concussion. They've already put a couple guys on our Kindle Vildor and Jalen Johnson. So they are just decimating that secondary. So that running and passing game, get well game here for the Vikings. They need one offensively out of the playoffs. So they're definitely going to be playing in the wild card round. So I do like that number for Justin Jefferson as he chases some history there with his numbers in Minnesota, especially after the clunker last week against Jair Alexander and the Packers. All right, there you have it. There's your lineup Friday, your DFS advice and injury report updates here that you need to know for week number 18 of Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For a second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insights you love to the national spotlight, a daily conversation on the biggest NFL stories, all surrounding now that Bills-Bengals game, what to do there, and the recovery of DeMar Hamlin. So check it out, Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in all your contests, whether it be finishing up seasonal or DFS for Saturday and Sunday's games. We'll be back for reactions on Monday as we turn the page and flip it from the regular season to the NFL playoffs.